Okay, let's get a quiet another hand, y'all. Praise to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to everyone that's here. Peace to everyone that's watching us on the internet. And as always, it's good to stand before you on this day, the Lord's Sabbath day. Today we're going to deal with Israel as a nation, because right now there's somebody out there that's claiming to be us. So that's why the title of the lesson is called Israel, Who Are They and Where Are They? Because we know just by history, the people that's calling themselves Israel are not the people that we can read about in this Bible, because certain things are supposed to take place with this nation. And we're going to find out through history. Even though this is a small lesson, we got a lot of history to cover. And we're going to, once you get out of this lesson, you're going to know exactly who Israel is, and you're going to know exactly where Israel is. So we're going to start this off in Genesis chapter 10, because that's the one way you're going to find out who somebody is. You got to go back to the beginning and find them. So we're going to start in Genesis 10. Genesis chapter 10. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1. This is the Table of Nations chapter. Okay. And this is after the flood. And the Lord gave a commandment to Noah and his 3 sons to be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. So if you didn't come out of one of these 3 sons, you waiting on the mother ship to come and collect you, because everyone can trace themselves back to either Shem, Ham, or Japheth. Let's pick it up in Genesis 10 and pick it up in verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog and Madai, and Javan and Tubal, and Meshech and Tiras. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz and Rephath and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan, Elisha and Tarshish, Kittim and Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. So
now Japheth's descendants is what the Bible calls the Gentiles. Has nothing to do with a religion. It's just simply a bloodline. Noah's son Japheth, his descendants are Gentiles. And let's look at the handout. Everybody get a handout? Okay, let's look at Japheth. And let's see, because we see the immediate region that he populated, but the Lord said, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. So you have to spread abroad as well. And let's see where Japheth ended up migrating to. Japheth, this is from the Smith Bible Dictionary. And let's read what it says about Japheth. Go ahead.
Japheth, one of the 3 sons of Noah. The descendants of Japheth occupied the isles of the Gentiles, the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea in Europe and Asia Minor, whence they spread northward over the whole continent of Europe and a considerable portion of Asia.
So we see from that immediate area around the Mediterranean coast, they also spread over the whole continent of Europe. And we know what the European continent looks like. And it also says a considerable portion of Asia. So not only do we have some white people that are Gentiles, we also have some Asian people that are Gentiles as well. Okay? So Japheth's descendants are the Gentiles, but we still haven't located Israel yet. So we know that Israel couldn't be a descendant of Japheth. No matter how much 1/4 you think you are, 1/8 or whatever it is, you always mention the part that's don't want to be mentioned, and that's the part that you actually are. So you can be 1/4 Indian, 1/4 Irish. What about the other fraction that you don't mention? That's the one that you are. Now let's pick it back up in Genesis 10. Let's pick it up at verse 6. And let's look at Ham. Genesis 10 and 6. Go ahead.
And the sons of Ham, Cush and Mizraim, and Phut and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba and Havilah, and Sabta, and Rama, and Saptika, and the sons of Rama, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Asher, and builded Nineveh, and the city Rehoboth, and Calah. And Resen between Nineveh and Calah, the same is a great city. And Mizraim begat Ludim, and Anamim, and Leabim, and Naphtahim, and Pathrashim, and Casluhim, out of whom came Philistim, and Caphtorim. And Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusite, and the Amorite, and the Girgashite, and the Hivite, and the Archite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zimmerite, and the Hamathite. And afterward were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad.
So we got a lot of ites that came out of Canaan. A lot of ites. That's why Canaan was an ite too. He was a Canaanite. So we see a lot of ites came out of Canaan, and they spread abroad, and we're going to show you that they spread over the whole continent of what we call Africa today. They was everywhere, all over there. Even that part of what they so-called the Middle East, they was all over there too. Keep reading.
And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar, unto Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah, and Admah, and Zeboim, even unto Lasha. So Canaan, the Canaanites also inhabited Sodom and Gomorrah. This is before it went bad, because that country used to look beautiful before the Canaanites got a hold of it and just turned it into a cesspool. Because Ham has always been steeped in homosexuality. Go ahead. These are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. Okay, so now let's look at Ham. We're going to go to the New Compact Bible Dictionary. It's on the handout. Flip over to the next page. It's a little small one over there in the corner. It might have a staple on it. But we're going to read it, because some of this stuff I, tried to copy, and it didn't come out as clear as I wanted to, but we're going to read it so you can get some understanding anyway. Let's read it from the New Compact Bible Dictionary. Let's see Ham. Okay, go ahead, read on Ham. Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood. So we're still dealing with the sons of Noah. Japheth was first. Now we're going to deal with Ham. Go ahead. And one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races. So Ham became the progenitor of the dark races, the dark-skinned folks, black folks, okay, that we commonly call black, but everybody that's black ain't black, if you know what I mean. But go ahead. Not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. His indecency when his father lay drunken brought a curse upon Canaan. So we see Ham was a progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes. And who's commonly called Negro? The ones that was enslaved over here in America and across the world. So they didn't come from Ham, and we definitely didn't come from Japheth. So by process of elimination, we must have come from Shem. But because we don't know who we are, we want to identify ourselves with the Egyptians, because they just happen to look like us. But remember, Israel was assimilated into all nations. So just because they don't look like the one that's over there in India don't look like me, his hair may be a little straighter, his skin may be a little darker. However, the identifying mark on them is the curses. How do they live? Are they poor and impoverished? Are they catching hell on all sides? Are they out there catching rats to sell them into the city to make some money? The curses follow Israel. I don't care where you are. Black Russian is not a drink. Let's go to back to the Bible, and let's see Genesis 10, and let's pick up Shem. We're gonna pick it up at verse 21. It took y'all a minute to get that one, huh? Y'all need to wake up. The parade was last week. Okay, Genesis 10 and 21. Let's look at Shem. Okay, go ahead. Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Heber, the brother of Japheth the elder, even to him were children born. The children of Shem, Elam, and Asher, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram. And the children of Aram, Uz, and Hul, and Gether, and Mash. And Arphaxad begat Selah, and Selah begat Heber.
Okay, so we ain't gonna read all these names under Shem because we just want to pinpoint the guy that we're looking for. Skip down to verse 31. Go ahead.
These are the sons of Shem, after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations. These are the families of the sons of Noah, after their generations, in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood.
So by these three sons, the nations were divided into the earth. But we're still trying to locate Israel. We've already eliminated Ham because Ham's descendants already said that the Negroes did not come from Ham. And we know just by reason of identity and looks, we couldn't have came from Japheth because nobody in here is European. I don't care what 1/4 you think you are not European. Let's go to Genesis 11 and let's pick it up at verse 10. Go ahead. Oh yeah, we got to read something, don't we? Let's read, look at the handout. It's right under there. It's called, it's right above, right by Ham. It's called the 10th chapter. You probably can't read it that good, but we're going to read it up here. Just follow along. Go ahead. Right here. This is from the Story of the Bible World by Reader's Digest.
The 10th chapter of Genesis is indeed a unique document. It is maintained that no compilation just like it has ever been found in the literature of any other ancient people. The fundamental spirit of it is still being tested in our own land and throughout the world today. It seeks to show that the nation sprang from a common ancestry and that all men are brothers with a human unity like unto the unity of God. There's a religious purpose in it. Keep going.
No, I'll start right there. Go ahead.
Apart from its religious and moral values, the 10th chapter of Genesis is proven to be a most dependable table of nations. Peoples and places of ancient time. The names given are those of the descendants of Noah's sons, the eldest of whom was Shem, followed by Ham, with Japheth as the youngest. The descendants of Ham and Japheth receive far less attention in the Bible than those of Shem, among whom was the great patriarch Abram or Abraham. Japheth's sons are named in Genesis chapter 10, verses 2, and their names prove to be those of Indo-European peoples inhabiting Western Asia and parts of Europe in early Old Testament times. The name of the son Gomer undoubtedly designates the Cimmerian people, the Chimera of Homer, a gloomy tribe which lived in or near the Crimean Peninsula. Magog's name is that of a people whose land has never been clearly identified. There can be little doubt that Madai means the Medes who lived in the hill country between the Caspian Sea and the Persian Gulf.
Okay, that's good on that. Let's go down to, you know what, just keep reading. Y'all don't have it, just keep reading. No, just listen up. Go ahead.
From Javan comes the term Ionian, meaning the Greeks and especially that branch inhabiting the Aegean Islands in Western Asia Minor. Tubal and Meshach perhaps people parts of Asia Minor, while Tiras was very likely became the Thracians. The descendants of Gomer's eldest son, Ashkenaz, seem to have been the Scythians who, according to Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 27, lived in the vicinity of Mount Ararat.
We know who the Ashkenazis are, right? There's a whole bunch of them over there in Israel calling themselves you. But we can see from this that they descendants from Japheth. So they couldn't be Semitic. 85% of them are European who've been proselytized. But the world accepts them as being Israel. Keep going.
The tribe may have pushed on into Europe. In later Jewish literature, the name Ashkenaz denoted the German peoples. Rephath and Togarmah, sons of Gomer, were peoples of Asia Minor. Javan's 4 children were Elisha and Kittim, whose descendants lived on the island of Cyprus, Tarshish, whose people lived in Spain, and Dodanim, whose descendants probably inhabited Rhodes and neighboring islands in the Aegean Sea.
So we see the Spanish people are Europeans. They Gentiles too. That's why they hate the Mexicans, the Puerto Ricans, everybody in South America. They hate them because not only do they claim the Spanish language, even though they was conquered, colonized by them, they don't like them because they don't speak the proper Spanish, the so-called Castilian, like the King's English. We don't speak the King's English. So they may consider us hillbillies. But they don't like them, even though they're Europeans. They speak the same language. That's why, my little Mexican brothers, I asked them, what language did you speak before you got conquered by Spain? Couldn't even tell you. And then they give them all kind of names, Latinos. They don't even speak Latin. Ask them why they call you Latino. You don't even speak Latin. But that's what they call you, just like they call us by every other name. But go ahead.
Ham's son Cush gave his name to what we know today as Ethiopia, while Mizraim is a common name for Egypt. Phut signifies Libya, while Canaan gave his name first to the maritime plains of Palestine and then to all the land west of the River Jordan.
Okay, skip down right here. Let's start at that next paragraph.
Now we come to the tribes of the Holy Land itself. Mizraim seems to have sired or fostered not only the Egyptians, but also the Philistine peoples. Canaan and his sons populated not only the land which came to bear his name, but surrounding areas as well. The name of his firstborn, Zidon, stood for the whole Phoenician coast. Heth refers to the Hittites, who built a remarkable civilization in Asia Minor. The Jebusites, until dispossessed by David, held the site which later became Jerusalem. The Amorites settled east of the Jordan, the Hamathites to the north of Canaan. The other names in Genesis chapter 10, verses 6 through 18, designate local Canaanite tribes. These various nations descended from Ham were politically subject to Egypt at the time this ancient list was drawn up. The name of Shem's immediate descendants can be quite readily connected to certain Eastern Semitic groups. Elam is unquestionably the Elamites immediately north of the Persian Gulf. Asher is surely the Assyrians, and Arphaxad is generally conceded to be the Chaldeans. Lud is the Lydians of Asia Minor, and Aram the Aramaean peoples of Syria and Mesopotamia, more generally known as the Syrians.
Okay, so we see that the table of nations is an actual table of nations. You can actually trace everybody who knows who they are back to Noah's 3 sons. Everybody except for you. Because you want to be Egyptian. Some of y'all want to be European. But you don't want to be Semitic because you don't know nothing about the Semites. But turns out you are Semitic. Now let's go back to the Bible. Let's go to Genesis 11. We're going to pick it up at verse 10. We're still dealing with Shem because we know we're not Ham according to history because we didn't write none of this stuff. The Gentiles wrote it. They know who you are, but you don't know who you are. Because anytime they can tell you you're not an Egyptian, but you're going to identify yourself as being Egyptian, they looking at you like this people is lost. Genesis 11, and pick it up at verse 10. Go ahead.
These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years and begat sons and daughters. And Arphaxad lived 35 years and begat Selah. And Arphaxad lived after he begat Selah 403 years and begat sons and daughters. And Selah lived 30 years and begat Heber. And Selah lived after he begat Heber 403 years and begat sons and daughters.
Okay, skip down to verse 24.
And Nahor lived 29 years and begat Terah. And Nahor lived after he begat Terah 119 years and begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran begat Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. And Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarah, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and the father of Iscah. But Sarah was barren, she had no child.
So we're going to deal with Abram, because Abram is the one we want. Because he's a descendant of Shem through our facsad. Now let's go right into the 12th chapter of Genesis and pick it up at verse 1. Go ahead.
Now the Lord has said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abram departed, as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him, and Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abram took Sarah his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came.
So Abram left home when he was 75 years old with a wife who couldn't have no kids. And here's the Lord telling him, I'm going to make a great nation out of you. But Abraham listened, okay? He booked up right away and took all his substance with him. And he's going exactly where the Lord told him to go, the land of Canaan. Go ahead.
And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the plain of Moreh, and the Canaanite was then in the land. And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord who appeared unto him. So
now he told him, unto your seed I'm going to give this land. But he ain't got no seed. But wherever his land is, that's the Lord said, I'm going to give your seed this land. Let's go to Genesis 15. Because we still got to find this Negro. Genesis 15 and pick it up at verse 1. Go ahead.
After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. And Abram said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless, and the steward of my house is this Eleazar of Damascus?
So the Lord is constantly telling Abraham, I'm going to bless you, I'm going to bless you, your seed, your seed, your seed. But every time he's talking to the Lord, he's like, look, man, I need somebody. You say I'm going to be a great nation. I have nobody. Go ahead.
And Abram said, behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is thine heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, this shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and said, look now toward heaven, and tell the stars if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, so shall thy seed be.
Now, he must have really lost his mind now. He's like, man, you telling me this dude that's in my house, he's my heir? And the Lord said, look, no, he ain't going to be your heir. The one that's going to come out your bowels is going to be your heir. Now, look at the stars and count them. If you can count them, that's how your seed is going to be. Okay. Let's go to, keep reading. Finish it up.
And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness.
Now, he believed the Lord, and the Lord counted it to him for righteousness.
And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it.
Okay, now let's go to, skip down to 18.
In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. The Kenites and the Kenzanites, and the Cadmonites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Rephaims, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites.
So now the Lord is telling Abraham, he made a promise to Abraham. That's what a covenant is. That's a promise. That to your seed, even though this man ain't got no seed, he ain't got no child, he said, to your seed, I'm going to give this land. Now, this is before Abraham ain't even had a child. He told them, I'm going to give you this land. And the land that Israel, when Israel went in the land, they were supposed to take it all, but you know, they got a little big-headed beside themselves, and their boundaries was a lot more than what was mapped out here that we see in these Bible maps. It was supposed to cover all that land, because he said, unto thy seed from the river of Egypt unto the great river Euphrates. So if you look on a map and go from Egypt, go to Egypt, the Egyptian river, the Nile River, and go all the way up to the Euphrates, all that land was supposed to be Israel's, all of it. But they got beside themselves. You can read it in Judges on your own. They got beside themselves. The Lord was with them. They was knocking off all these tribes, and they was like, we can't knock all these dudes off, man. Let's put them to work. Let's get some work out of these dudes. But the Lord got mad at them. They were supposed to go in there and kill everybody up in there. But they didn't. Okay, let's go to, where we at? Genesis 25. So Abraham finally got him a seed. And he had Isaac. So the blessing, the covenant passed on from Abraham on to Isaac. Genesis 25, and let's pick it up at verse 19. 25 and 19, go ahead.
And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begat Isaac. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Pandanaram, the sister to Laban the Syrian. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children struggled together within her, and she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them.
So Abraham's son Isaac was 60 years old when he had twins, Esau and Jacob. And they said Esau came out red all over like a hairy garment. They was real specific about what Esau looked like. But as far as Jacob just looked like everybody else that was in the land. There's no differentiation between what Jacob looked like, but we know what Esau looked like. Now let's go to, we finished that? Yes, sir. Let's go to Genesis 26. Genesis 26. Now we're getting close. We're going to find this guy. Genesis 26. And pick it up at verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
And there was a famine in the land beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. And the Lord appeared unto him and said, go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and will bless thee. For unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abraham thy father. And I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws.
So now here's Isaac with he got twins, 2 boys. And the Lord is still saying seed, seed, seed. Stars of heaven, that's how great your seed gonna be, and I'm gonna give him this land. And here's a man with just 2 boys. But see, when the Lord makes a promise, he keeps it. Whether it be a nation that's gonna inherit the land or one person, as long as that one seed, as long as that seed gets into that land, the Lord has kept his promise. That's why he was ready to wipe out the whole nation of Israel except for Moses. And then as long as Moses got in the land, the Lord kept his promise. So when the Lord makes a promise, he keeps it, unlike his people. Let's go to Genesis 28. So the blessing carried on to Isaac. And we know the story of Esau and Jacob. Esau sold his birthright. Jacob went in there, got the blessing, and booked up. And his mother told him to go stay with my uncle till your brother's anger cool off, and that's exactly what he did. But on his way to Laban's house, he ran into the Lord. Genesis 28, and pick it up at verse 10. Go ahead.
And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Pandanaram to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take thee a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. And God Almighty bless thee and make thee fruitful and multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people.
Okay, skip down to verse 10.
And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. And he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night, because the sun was set. And he took of the stones of that place and put them for his pillows and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land whereon thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed.
So he was telling Abraham and Isaac the stars. Now he's telling Jacob the dust of the earth. And there's a whole lot of dirt on this earth. And mud is dirt too. It's just wet. So that blessing passed on to Jacob. Not Esau, it went on to Jacob. That his seed was going to be blessed, that he was going to multiply. His descendants were going to be as the stars of heaven and the dust of the earth. Did we finish that? Go ahead, read that one verse.
And behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and will bring thee again into this land. For I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken of thee, or spoken to thee of.
Okay, now let's flip over to Genesis 32. So we see the blessing went on to Jacob. So Jacob went down, stayed with his uncle, got rich, got 4 wives, 13 kids. Now he's on his way back home, and he's going to meet his brother on the way. But before he meets up with Esau, let's see what happens. Genesis 32, and let's pick it up at verse 24. Go ahead.
And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, What is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed.
So now we see who Israel is. Israel is Jacob. So now the title says Israel, who are they? Well, we can say Israel, who is Israel? We know that's Jacob. And we know Jacob's is Israel, and his seed is going to be R. As opposed to one man, it's going to be a bunch of them. A bunch of nations, a bunch of people. And that's where we're going to get the who are from. So who are Israel? Now we know who Israel is. Now let's get to the who are. Who are Israel? Who are they? Did we finish that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go to Genesis 35. Flip over to Genesis 35. So now we know who Israel is. Genesis 35, and pick it up at verse 9. Go ahead.
And God appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Pandanaram and blessed him. And God said unto him, Thy name is Jacob. Thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel. And God said unto him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. and the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed after thee will I give the land.
So now Jacob, he can do a little boasting because he got 13 kids when the Lord making him this promise. When he made it to Abraham, Abraham didn't have nothing. When he made it to Isaac, Isaac only had twins. But now Jacob, he got 13 kids, so at least he can, see some light at the end of the tunnel. But keep reading. Go ahead.
And God went up from him in the place where he talked with him, and Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, even a pillar of stone, and he poured a drink offering thereon, and he poured oil thereon, and Jacob called the name of the place where God spake with him Bethel.
Okay, skip down to verse 21. Go ahead.
And Israel journeyed and spread his tent beyond the Tower of Edar. And it came to pass, when Israel dwelt in that land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. And Israel heard it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12.
Now he get ready to name the sons now. The sons of Jacob are 12. Go ahead.
The sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon, and Levi, and Judah, and Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. And the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Pandanaram.
So Jacob had 12 boys and one daughter. So these 12 sons are what we call the 12 tribes of Israel. And from these 12 boys, a nation came out of. Because when they was, well, we're going to read it. I ain't going to even jump the gun. Let's go to Exodus 1. So now we see who they are. You got 12 boys. They're going to start multiplying like rabbits. Exodus 1. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Exodus 1 and 1. Go ahead.
Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them.
That means they was having babies like rabbits. 70 people. 70 people went down into Egypt. And we got a lesson that will name all 70 of them. But that's another lesson. So 70 people went down into Egypt, and the Bible says they were fruitful, increased abundantly, and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty. I don't know what other words we can put on that, but they was getting busy. Let's go to Exodus 12, and let's see how long they was in Egypt. Because if you're in Egypt this long and you're doing all this, you can have a lot of babies. So let's see how long they was in Egypt. Exodus 12. Flip right over to Exodus 12, and we're going to read verse 40. Okay, go ahead.
Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years.
So they was down in Egypt 430 years. 30 years was living good, 400 years was slavery. But that didn't stop them from procreating. Because the Lord said he was going to multiply them like the stars of the sand, stars of the sky and the dust of the earth. So they did their job. Flip back to 36. 36, go ahead.
And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required. And they spoiled the Egyptians. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot, that were men beside children.
So 70 people went down into Egypt, and when they came out, 600,000 men. This is not counting the women and the children. 600,000 plus came out of Egypt in 400 years, 430 years. That's a lot of babies. That is a lot. And they became a nation in Egypt. So now we know who are they. Israel, who are they? They're a nation. Now let's go to finish that verse. Go ahead.
And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle.
So the Lord is keeping his promise to make his seed abundant. Now let's look at Amos chapter 3. Amos 3, because the Lord made a promise to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob. Amos 3. And we're going to read a couple of verses in Amos, 1 and 2. Amos 3, and pick it up at verse 1. When you get there, go ahead.
Hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities.
So out of all the nations on the earth, Israel is the only one that the Lord knows. Just Israel. He could be acquainted with the rest of them, but the only nation that he knows is Israel. Because he promised that to Abraham, Isaac, and to Jacob. Israel is the only nation that I know. Therefore, I will punish you for iniquity, for all your iniquities. That's why Israel don't get away with nothing. Now, if the one that's calling himself Israel today, he's getting away with a lot of stuff. He's got all the money, on all the buildings. So I'm quite sure he's living good, and he's calling himself Israel. But all this good stuff we're reading couldn't be. Exodus 19. And let's see what else this nation's supposed to do. Exodus 19. And we're going to pick it up at verse 5. Exodus 19 and 5. Okay, go ahead.
Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. For all the earth is mine, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel.
So the nation of Israel is supposed to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Go to Deuteronomy 14. Flip over to Deuteronomy 14. And read verse 2. 14 and 2, that one verse. Go ahead.
For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God, and the Lord hath chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations that are upon the earth.
So the nation that the Lord chose, they're supposed to be on the top, above all the people that's on the earth. A holy nation, a nation of priests, you're supposed to teach. All the world is supposed to wonder why these people are getting blessed so much. But apparently that's not the case, because the one that's calling themselves you and getting blessed, ain't nobody wondering. They know this dude is a crook. And let's go to Deuteronomy, flip back to Deuteronomy 4. Because if you're a kingdom of priests, that means you're supposed to teach. If your show is legit, you should be out there to go on the road and convert everybody. You shouldn't have to lay back in the wings and have somebody come over there to convert to you. You should be able to get out there, and if your show is right, they should be coming to you. I don't see anybody lining up to convert to no Judaism. Deuteronomy 4, and pick it up at verse 5. Go ahead.
Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither you go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people.
So what is our wisdom in the sight of all nations? The laws and statutes and commandments of God. If the whole nation was keeping it, it wouldn't be no problem. Just think if all of LA, all the Hebrews out here just happen to just keep the Sabbath, shut down on a Friday night, they'd be looking like, wait, what's wrong with these people? Put the police out of it, they'd be able to take the weekends off because there wouldn't be no crime. And then when they see y'all doing it, everybody else going to get on the bandwagon too. That's wisdom right there. Why y'all cutting down on Friday? Well, it's the Lord's Sabbath. What? And you just keep doing it. And finally, they're going to see. But we see what we're doing. We ain't doing it. So what's happening? This ain't no understanding. Surely this is a great nation, wise and understanding people. Really? Go ahead, verse 7.
For what nation is there so great, who have God so near unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon him for?
So if we were doing this, people would look at us like, man, we need to get on that bandwagon. Now they ain't looking at us like that. They see you coming, they walking across the street. That's right. You show up, they trying to get out the neighborhood. They're not trying to come to you for any kind of wisdom and knowledge. They're trying to get away from you because they know whenever you show up, it's trouble. Stay away from my daughter. It's trouble. Let's go to, finish that up. We finish that?
And what nation is there so great that have statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law, which I set before you this day? Only take heed to thyself and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thine eyes have seen, and lest they depart from thy heart all the days of thy life, but teach them thy sons and thy sons' sons.
Okay, let's go to Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28, because we find out who Israel is. Now let's see some of the things the Lord said was going to happen to them. We're going to get to the good stuff first, because the Lord is even-handed. He'll bless you, and then he'll get you too. But the blessings only continue as long as you're doing what you're doing, because once you fall off, the blessings go with it. Now let's go to Deuteronomy 28, and we're going to see when Israel was at its height, when it was blessed, everybody was coming to him with all kinds of money, chickens, cattle, everything. Deuteronomy 28, go ahead. What y'all laughing at me? 28:1, go ahead.
And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep.
So if you was doing good, then your kids was do good. You wouldn't have to worry about them getting shot. They'd have the best education. Why? Because God is with you. Keep reading.
Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. Blessed shall thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out. The Lord shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way and flee before thee 7 ways.
So those are some good blessings, and we had those. The Lord promised Abraham his seed was going to get into the land, and they got into the land because he made that promise to them. But they acted up. The Lord put them in captivity. They cried to him. He took them out. They acted up again, put them in captivity. They cried to him. He took them out. And then brought up judges to judge them. Gave him a king named Saul, who messed up. And then came David. the greatest warrior that we ever had. He knocked off everybody. He paved the way to show you how these blessings were supposed to take place. When David knocked off all the enemies, this is what Solomon asked for, because Solomon was not a fighter. And he knew that. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 3. So the man who used to keep sheep turned out to be the greatest killer alive. Killed a whole bunch of people. And had an entourage with him that could do just as much good killing as he could. David's boys did not play. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 3, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. 1 Kings 3 and verse 1. Go ahead.
And Solomon made affinity with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of David until he had made an end of building his own house and the house of the Lord and the wall of Jerusalem round about. Only the people sacrificed in high places because there was no house built unto the name of the Lord until those days. And Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. Only he sacrificed and burnt incense in high places. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. 1,000 burnt offerings did Solomon offer upon the altar. In Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, ask what I shall give thee. And Solomon said, thou hast showed unto thy servant David my father great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth and in righteousness and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day. And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father, and I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in. And thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude.
So we see the Lord kept his promise, right? He multiplied Israel. But Solomon, he said, I'm just a child, man. I don't know what's happening. I don't know how to rule these people. What can I do? My father, he had him in check. But me, what can I do? I'm 115 pounds soaking wet. Go ahead.
Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this, thy so great a people? And the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. And God said unto him, because thou hast asked this thing, and hast not asked for thyself long life, neither hast asked riches for thyself, nor hast asked the life of thine enemies, but hast asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment. Behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and understanding heart, so that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee.
So that really touched the Lord. He asked for some wisdom. Anybody in here, if they wanted anything, anybody get one thing in their whole entire life, anybody wants some money. Give me some money right now. But this man asked for wisdom. But see, with the wisdom comes knowledge. And with your knowledge and wisdom comes the money. Go ahead.
And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be any among the kings like unto thee all thy days. And if thou wilt walk in my ways, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days. And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings and offered peace offerings, and made a feast to all his servants.
So the Lord told him, I'm going to give you wisdom, but I'm going to give you riches too. But if you walk in my ways and keep my statutes, I'm going to lengthen your days. There's always a stipulation with the Lord. He will bless you as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do. It's just like your child. You reward your child as long as they're good. When they mess up, you put the belt on them, right? The rod of correction. Same way with the Lord. He will bless you as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do. You may not be drowning, but your head is above water. You still breathing. You may not have steak, but you got hamburgers. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 4. So the Lord gave him what he asked for. He gave him wisdom. And with that wisdom comes understanding and knowledge and riches as well. Let's look at it. 1 Kings 4, pick it up at verse 1. Go ahead.
So King Solomon was king over all Israel, and these were the princes which he had.
We ain't going to read all of these, because go ahead, though.
Azariah, the son of Zadok, the priest. Eliareph, and Ahiah, the sons of Shishah, scribes, Jehoshaphat, the son of Elihud, Ahilud, the recorder, and Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was over the host, and Zadok and Abiathar were the priests. And Azariah, the son of Nathan, was over the officers, and Zabud, the son of Nathan, was principal officer and the king's friend. And Ahishar was over the household, and Adoniram, the son of Abda, was over the tribute. And Solomon had 12 officers over all Israel, which provided victuals for the king and his household. Each man his month in a year made provision.
So you see that 12 is still prevalent around. You see? 12 tribes of Israel. Solomon had 12 prince officers over all Israel. Now skip down to verse 14. I got the wrong sheet. My notes is messed up. Yeah, whatever's on the handout. Skip down to verse 20, yeah. Go ahead.
Judah and Israel were many as the sand which is by the sea in multitude, eating and drinking and making merry. And Solomon reigned over all kingdoms from the river unto the land of the Philistines and unto the border of Egypt. They brought presents and served Solomon all the days of his life.
So here are the blessings at its height. David knocked off all your enemies. All you got to do is sit back and reap the fortunes, because you already got the wisdom and the knowledge. The Lord blessed you with that. And it says Judah and Israel were many as the sand is by the sea in the multitude, eating, drinking, and making merry. You ain't got to worry about nothing. You can sit up and drink and eat all day and all night. Go ahead.
And Solomon's provision for one day was 30 measures of fine flour and 80 measures of meal, 10 fat oxen and 20 oxen out of the pastures, and 100 sheep, beside harts and roebucks and fallow deer and fatted fowl. For he had dominion over all the region on this side the river, from Tifsa even to Asa, over all the kings on this side the river. And he had peace on all sides round about him. And Judah and Israel dwelt safely, every man under his vine and under his fig tree, from Dan even to Beersheba, all the days of Solomon.
Can you just imagine not having to lock your front door at night, leaving your garage door up? Ain't got to worry about nobody breaking in or nothing. This was peace, no enemies. This is the height of the blessings right here. Go ahead.
And Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots and 12,000 horsemen. And those officers provided victual for King Solomon and for all that came unto King Solomon's table. Every man in his month, they lacked nothing. Barley also and straw for the horses, and dromedaries brought they unto the place where the officers were, every man according to his charge. And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding, exceeding much, and largeness of heart, even as the sand that is on the seashore. And Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the east country and all the wisdom of Egypt.
Now that's some serious wisdom. Not only are you eating good, but your pet's eating good too. Your dogs are eating steaks, filet mignon, instead of them Gaines burgers. Let's go to 1 Kings. Finish that up. Go ahead.
For he was wiser than all men, than Ethan, the Ezrahite, and Heman, and Chekol, and Darda, the sons of Mahol, and his fame was in all nations round about. And he spake 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005.
So we only got a portion of the Proverbs that Solomon spake. And not only could he speak Proverbs, but he could sing too. Keep reading.
And he spake of trees, from the cedar tree that is in Lebanon, even unto the hyssop that springeth out of the wall. He spake also of beasts, and of fowl, and of creeping things, and of fishes. And there came of all people to hear the wisdom of Solomon from all kings of the earth, which had heard of his wisdom.
So that's what the Lord promised Israel as a nation? This was going to be the sight. Your wisdom, the sight you keep these commandments, that's going to be the sight of all the nations around about. They're going to want to know, what are you doing to get blessed so much? It's the wisdom, keeping the laws and statutes and commandments of God.
Amen.
1 Kings 10. Now he got all this wisdom. Everybody coming to look. And when the people come and see that the house is in order, people want to jump on this. 1 Kings chapter 10. Pick it up at verse 1. Go ahead.
And when the queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to prove him with hard questions.
Now here's the queen of Sheba. She heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the Lord. But we see the movies that made this into some kind of love story, which you can't even read in this book. She came to prove him with hard questions about the Lord. Go ahead.
And she came to Jerusalem with a very great train, with camels that bear spices, and very much gold, and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart. And Solomon told her all her questions. There was not anything hid from the king which he told her not. And when the queen of Sheba had seen all Solomon's wisdom, and the house that he had built, and the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants, and the attendance of his ministers, and their apparel, and his cupbearers, and his ascent by which he went up into the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. And she said to the king, it was a true report that I heard in mine own land of thy acts and of thy wisdom. Howbeit I believed not the words until I came, and mine eyes had seen it, and behold, the half was not told me. Thy wisdom and prosperity exceedeth the fame which I heard.
So now she only heard about it. And that's what happens when you doing what you're supposed to do. People hear about it. And then they come in and, what you doing, man? Where you go to some Bible study? What's that all about? And here they come. But you got to keep doing what you're doing. That's the thing. Because people observe and they watch. And they see what you're doing. And if you're getting blessed, they want to know why you're getting blessed so much. And you let them know, I'm keeping the Sabbath, high days, dietary law, reading the book. Keep reading.
Happy are thy men, happy are thy servants, which stand continually before thee, and that hear thy wisdom.
So everybody's happy. If your house is in order, everybody's happy. The whole nation was in order right here. They had the wisest king. As the king had wisdom, he had knowledge. People wanted to seek his knowledge. And while they were seeking his knowledge, he answered all their questions. You got to give them a little something, you know. You ain't coming for nothing. You compelled to do it. Even if you didn't have nothing. You'd feel ashamed if you didn't have nothing to give them. But you find something and come back. And that's how that wisdom is. Go ahead.
Blessed be the Lord, thy God, which delighted in thee to set thee on the throne of Israel, because the Lord loved Israel forever. Therefore made he thee king to do judgment and justice.
Okay, skip down to verse 14 and let's see what this wisdom brought him. Go ahead.
Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold.
Now, I don't know how much that is, but that's a lot of gold. And that's 1 year. What else?
Beside that he had of the merchantmen, and of the traffic of the spice merchants, and of all the kings of Arabia, and of the governors of the country.
So Arabia is way long way from Israel. And they heard him from way over there. And they was coming and they was bringing stuff. This is Israel at the height of his blessing. Not only that, but they built the big house for the Lord. But the Lord said, if you don't do and keep my statutes and commandments, I will tear this house up. I don't care what you doing. If it's contrary to me, I'm taking everything away. And we know the end result. Solomon messed up. The kingdom got split. So we see the height of the blessings. Now let's look at the flip side. Go back to Deuteronomy 28. Because we like to look at the curses, but remember, we was blessed at one point. Blessed big time. But what happens? When the head falls, so does the body. Solomon messed up, and it was over with after that. He got old, got beside himself, and he messed up. Deuteronomy 28. Because the Lord always continue the blessings as long as you're doing what you're doing. But just in case you stop doing what you're doing. Verse 15, go ahead.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee.
So now we know he's talking to who? Israel. We've already identified who Israel is. This is a nation. Go ahead. Skip down to verse 20. We're going to read some of these curses, but not all of them. We say that for another lesson. But these curses are identifying marks on a nation. So if you disobey God, he's going to put curses on you. Let's look at some of them. Verse 20, go ahead.
The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, and all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me.
So before you was flourishing in all aspects, now you ain't doing nothing. You can't even grow a weed. Go ahead.
The Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land, whither thou goest to possess it.
Before you was happy, eating, drinking, and being merry, now you're drinking medicine to cure your sickness. Skip down to verse 32.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. And there shall be no might in thine hand.
Keep reading.
The fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall the nations which thou knowest not eat up. And thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always.
Before you was happy, now you're oppressed. And with oppression comes depression. So look what happens. You get cursed. Go ahead. Verse 36.
The Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone.
Before everybody was coming to you, now they coming to take you to them. Go ahead.
And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee.
So wherever you scattered, you no longer have your prestigious name. You something else, a proverb and a byword. Now he's talking to Israel. Go ahead. 41, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low.
Before everybody was bringing you money, now you're going to them asking for money. Go ahead.
Verse 46, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
So some of these curses we reading, they gonna be upon you for a sign and a wonder. So these curses are supposed to come up on this nation of Israel. They had the blessing. We read about the blessing, and we can read where the king messed up, and now the curse is poured upon him. So now the Bible says, and these shall be upon thee for a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Forever is a mighty long time. It didn't stop when they stopped writing the Bible. It continued on. Because this nation is still going on, so these curses are still going on. So I don't care what you look like, the curses fit. You can claim 1/4 J fat or walk around looking like King Tut. The curses fit who you are. Skip down to verse 64. Go ahead.
And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
So one of the curses is they're going to be scattered. Israel is going to be scattered under every nation under the sun. Go ahead.
And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind.
So whatever nation you scattered in, you get no rest. You work sun up to sundown to bring home $15. Your take-home pay can't even take you home. Verse 68. And this is the killer right here. Go ahead.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
So he said the Lord is going to bring you to Egypt again with ships, by the way thereof I spake unto thee, and there you shall be sold as bondmen and bondwomen, or male and female slaves. Now we can pinpoint who Israel is. So Israel, who are they? Slaves. The so-called Negro, colored, Afro-American, African-American, Cuban-American, Cuban, Afro-Cuban, whatever you want to call yourself. If you got over here in the ship, you are Israel. Now let's go to 2 Kings. 2 Kings chapter 17. Because we're on the latter end of the captivity. This captivity started right when Solomon messed up. First he split the nation. The northern kingdom went crazy. And the Lord took them out. Let's look at it. 2 Kings 17, pick it up at verse 1. I used to have this teacher in high school. I used to hate him. He wouldn't teach nothing. He'd have everything written on the boards. And all you had to do was come in there and write everything down. It was up to you. All you had to do was study it. He had everything written on the board. We'd hate this dude, man. His name was Mr. Sapien. And sometimes we'd call him Homo sapien, but he took that as a compliment because homo means man and sapien means wise. So he said, wise man. We called him more homo than sapien. But yeah, that teacher, he had everything written on the board. You go in there, copy it down, and study. He wouldn't teach nothing. It was up to you to teach yourself. And that's what this book, the Lord had this book written right here. If, like I say, you want to read up here, all you need is a second grade education. If you got a second grade education, you can read. So he had this book written for us to read and understand it. 2 Kings 17, verse 1. Go ahead.
In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea, the son of Eli, to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him.
Now, this guy did evil, but he didn't do that much evil. But evil is still evil. And evil has a price to pay. Go ahead.
Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents.
Wasn't that one of the curses? Instead of the kings coming to you to look for wisdom, they're going to come to get you and take you out of your land. And that's what happened. This Assyrian king, it's in the history books. It's even written inscriptions on their walls. Because the Assyrians boasted. They had everything written down about every country that they conquered and beat up. They bragged about everything. Go ahead.
And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gozan and in the city of the Medes. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against the Lord their God. And they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city. And they set them up images and groves in every high hill and under every green tree. And there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen whom the Lord had carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger. For they serve idols, whereof the Lord has said unto them, you shall not do this thing. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, turn ye from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes according to all the law which I command your fathers and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets.
Didn't we read in Deuteronomy 28, if you refuse to listen to the Lord, all these curses are going to come up on you? We're looking at them right here. They wanted to serve them false gods. He sent the prophets to them, telling them to turn from your evil ways. They didn't do it. I mean, how many times? I mean, the Lord is merciful to his people. You know, he ain't like the mafia where you only get one chance. You know, the Lord will give you a chance. He's long-suffering. He's merciful. He'll give you chance after chance after chance. And finally, it's over with, man. You got to go. Keep reading.
Notwithstanding, they would not hear, but hardened their necks, like to the neck of their fathers that did not believe in the Lord their God. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified against them. And they followed vanity and became vain, and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom the Lord had charged them that they should not do like them. And they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, and made them molten images, even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worshiped all the host of heaven, and served Baal.
And that's one thing about Israel. We always want to follow somebody else. The Lord had made us to be on top. People were supposed to follow us. But now, since everything is reversed, we were supposed to be followed in a good capacity. But now, since the curses are upon us, they want to follow us now, but not in the capacity that we think that the Lord wanted them to, okay? You can see the dress, the clothes we wear. Everybody want to wear those. We trendsetters, right? But not trendy in a good way. Music. Solomon was a good singer. He was the wisest king. He was a good singer. He had some pipes. He could blow, right? But that's what the books say. But now, the singing capacity we have, people are mimicking the stuff that we're doing. It's rotten. It's terrible. Look at that stuff they're doing out there. And this is Israel. Keep reading.
And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger.
Yeah, skip down to 18. I'm sorry.
Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. Also Judah kept not the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel which they made. And the Lord rejected all the seed of Israel, and afflicted them, and delivered them into the hand of spoilers, until he had cast them out of his sight. For he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king, and Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Lord, and made them sin a great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did. They departed not from them, until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day.
So the 10 tribes was gone, and that's recorded history. Flip over to the next page on the handout. You can't hardly read it, but We're going to read it up here for you. It's out of the Atlas of the Bible, page 138. And this is just what we just read. And this is recorded history. Start at, right there. Go ahead.
If the Assyrian soldiers had little trouble getting to Samaria, they found this city on its solitary hill exceeding difficult to take. The siege lasted 3 years, one of the longest recorded sieges in antiquity. And though Shalmaneser died and was replaced by Sargon II, the change in monarchs made little difference to Israel.
So them Assyrians was determined to get Israel. That's why it took them 3 years. So when Shalmaneser died, come on, partner, pick up where I left off. Go ahead.
During the siege, suffering increased daily and desperation mounted by the hour until the Assyrians finally breached the walls and took the city. The year was 721. After 2 centuries, the northern kingdom of Israel had come to an end. In his annals, Sargon boasts of taking away as booty 27,290 inhabitants of Samaria, scattering these people to upper Mesopotamia and Media.
This is what the Lord said, right? You disobey me, I'm going to bring a king of fierce countenance, and I'm going to scatter you in every nation. Go ahead.
He also brought into Israel peoples conquered elsewhere, placing an Assyrian governor over them and requiring the customary tribute. He had in fact combined what was left of Israel with the province of Dor and annexed it to his empire as the province of Samaria. The newcomers in time merged with the remaining Israelites to become the Samaritans of the New Testament.
Okay, that's good on that. So we see where that woman of Samaria came from, right? We can read about her in John. You can do that on your own, but she thought she was Israel until Jesus had to check her. Now let's go to Jeremiah 21. So we see the 9 tribes got taken out by the Assyrians, which was recorded history. We read it. Now let's look at Jeremiah 21. So we got 3 tribes left. Jeremiah 21, pick it up at verse 1. When you get there, go ahead.
The word which came unto Jeremiah from the Lord, when King Zedekiah sent unto him Pashur, the son of Melchiah, and Zephaniah, the son of Messiah, the priest, saying, Inquire, I pray thee, of the Lord for us, for Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, maketh war against us. If so be that the Lord will deal with us according to all his wondrous works, that he may go up from us. Then said Jeremiah unto them, Thus shall you say to Zedekiah, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Behold, I will turn back the weapons of war that are in your hands, wherewith you fight against the king of Babylon and against the Chaldeans, which besiege you without the walls, and I will assemble them into the midst of this city. And I myself will fight against you with an outstretched hand and with a strong arm, even in anger and in fury and in great wrath.
So now they're trying to ask Jeremiah to ask the Lord to help us. And the Lord said, okay, I'm going to help you. I'm going to fight against you. I'm going to be on Nebuchadnezzar's side. Because they wouldn't listen. Go ahead.
And I will smite the inhabitants of this city, both man and beast. They shall die of a great pestilence.
He didn't want to try to hear that. It's the king he's talking to. Go ahead.
And afterwards saith the Lord, I will deliver Zedekiah king of Judah, and his servants, and the people, and such as are left in this city from the pestilence, from the sword, and from the famine, into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, and into the hand of their enemies, and into the hand of those that seek their life. And he shall smite them with the edge of the sword. He shall not spare them, neither have pity nor have mercy. And unto this people thou shalt say, Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I set before you the way of life and the way of death. He that abideth in this city shall die by the sword, and by the famine, and by the pestilence. But he that goeth out and falleth to the Chaldeans that besiege you, he shall live, and his life shall be unto him for a prey.
So now he's giving them an option. I'm going to bring Nebuchadnezzar down here. If you stick around in this city, you're going to die. But if you make a run for it, you might have a chance. He's going to take you away. But you stick around and try to defend this city, you're going to die because the Lord is against this city. And you want to hang around and try to fight the Lord? But your arm's too short to box with God? He's giving them an option. Run right now. Get up out of here. Go ahead.
For I have set my face against this city for evil and not for good, saith the Lord. It shall be given into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he shall burn it with fire.
Okay, so let's go to 2 Chronicles 36. And let's see this take place right now. But when the Lord says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. 2 Chronicles 36. Go back to 2 Chronicles 36. And this is the last king Israel ever had, Zedekiah. This is the one Jeremiah was talking to, telling him all this stuff going to happen. 2 Chronicles 36, and pick it up at verse 1. Go ahead. Yeah.
Then the people of the land took Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, and made him king in his father's stead in Jerusalem. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And the king of Egypt put him down at Jerusalem and condemned the land in 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And the king of Egypt made Eliakim the brother king over his brother, and the king of Egypt made Eliakim his brother king over Judah and Jerusalem, and turned his name to Jehoiakim. And Necho took Jehoahaz his brother, and carried him to Egypt. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord his God. Against him came up Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and bound him in fetters to carry him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried of the vessels of the house of the Lord to Babylon, and put them in his temple at Babylon.
Okay, skip down to verse 11. Let's look at Zedekiah. Go ahead.
Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord his God, and humbled not himself before Jeremiah the prophet, speaking from the mouth of the Lord. And he also rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, who made him swear by God. But he stiffened his neck and hardened his heart from turning unto the Lord God of Israel. Moreover, all the chief of the priests and the people transgressed very much after all the abominations of the heathen, and polluted the house of the Lord, which he had hallowed in Jerusalem. And the Lord God of their fathers sent to them by his messengers, rising up betimes and sending, but he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling on his dwelling place. But they mocked the messengers of God, and despised his words, and misused his prophets, until the wrath of the Lord arose against his people, till there was no remedy. Therefore he brought upon them the king of the Chaldees, who slew their young men with the sword in the house of their sanctuary, and had no compassion upon young man or maiden, old man, or him that stooped for age. He gave them all into his hand. And all the vessels of the house of God, great and small, and the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king, and of his princes, all these he brought to Babylon.
So Jeremiah told Zedekiah, look, you stick around, you're going to get killed, man. I'm giving the people an option. Run. You can run into slavery, or you can stay here and get killed. And that was your only option. I'd take the slavery. I wouldn't stick around to get killed, but we saw they did run. Some people ran. Keep reading.
And they burnt the house of God, and brake down the wall of Jerusalem, and burnt all the palaces thereof with fire, and destroyed all the goodly vessels thereof. And them that had escaped from the sword carried he away to Babylon.
So those are the ones that escaped, the ones that took heed and booked up, they had some chains waiting on them. Instead of a sword, take these bracelets and come on over here and work for me. Go ahead.
Where they were servants to him and his sons until the reign of the kingdom of Persia.
So they were in slavery until the kingdom of Persia, till Cyrus took over. Keep reading.
To fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had enjoyed her Sabbaths, for as long as she lay desolate, she kept Sabbath, to fulfill 70 years. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord spoken by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, Thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, all the kingdoms of the earth hath the Lord God of heaven given me, and he hath charged me to build him an house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Who is there among you of all his people?
So now Israel got taken out by Nebuchadnezzar, and they got handed down from slave master to slave master to slave master. Now let's look at this. This is recorded history as well. Flip back over to the other page. I got it out of order. This is Atlas of the Bible, page 143. We're going to read that one paragraph right there. Atlas of the Bible, 143. Go ahead.
Jeremiah urged Zedekiah to surrender the city, but the king refused for fear he would be handed over to his Judahite enemies who had already gone over to the Babylonians. In the summer of 587, the city's food supply ran out. About the same time, the Babylonians finally succeeded in breaching the walls. At night, Zedekiah and some of his men fled through the southeastern gate of the city toward Jericho, perhaps hoping to reach Amnon, which, unlike others in the abortive coalition, had remained faithful to its word to Zedekiah.
So Zedekiah had a chance. He told him, leave before the man come through here. But he going to wait thinking he going to defend the city. And it was already in the Lord's hands. He fighting against the Lord. But now when they breaking through the city, now he going to run. It's too late, partner. It's too late. The book tell you they caught him, killed his children in front of him, and put his eyes out. Go ahead.
But the hapless king was captured on the plains of Jericho and taken northward to Nebuchadnezzar at Riblah in Syria. There Zedekiah's sons were killed before his eyes. Then he was blinded, put in chains, and deported to Babylon.
Now he could have been deported in the chains while he could see. All he had to do was run. But he ended up getting his sons killed, and now he can't see. He's a blind slave. He's worse than a blind mule. He can't do nothing. Go ahead.
About a month later, Nebuzaradan, captain of Nebuchadnezzar's bodyguard, arrived in Jerusalem, rounded up thousands for deportation to Babylonia, and put the city to the torch. The captain left some of the poorest of the land to be vine dressers and plowmen. But Judah, some 400 years after David's kingship, was no more.
So Jerusalem was destroyed. Now this, I couldn't make no handout of this, but flip over to page 153, because we saw they was in exile to the reign of Cyrus. But then there was no relief after that. Even though they went back to build the temple, they still got handed over to another slave master. And his name is Alex. Read right there. Go ahead. Alice of the Bible 153. Go ahead.
Alexander's unprecedented 14,000-mile route of conquest took him as far as India. At Gaugamela, he routed Darius and his hordes, shattering the Persian Empire and Persian power forever. To reinforce that victory, he went on to take Darius's capitals at Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis, where he captured intact the immense Persian treasury and burned Darius's great palace. Now fully possessed by his dream of conquest, Alexander resumed his eastern campaign. In 326, in a battle on the banks of the Hydaspes, he defeated perhaps the most skillful foe he ever faced, the Indian king Porus. At last, pressured by his weary men, or his war-weary army, Alexander the Great ended his odyssey and turned back, having laid claim to most of Asia. But he would never reach his homeland at Babylon. In 323, he took a fever and died, He was only 32 years old. With him died his soaring ambition of world conquest.
So now Alexander the Great knocked out the Persian Empire. So if you knock off a kingdom that's got some slaves, you're going to inherit their slaves. So we just got handed over to the Greeks, which is where you get all these Maccabean wars and all that. They was fighting against the Greeks. So we see Israel is just being handed down from one slave master to another. Flip over to page 162 because we got to get down to Jesus' time. Who was in charge? Who was your slave master at the time of Jesus?
One expansionist strategy that stood Rome in good stead was divide and conquer. The first stage of most of its imperial ventures was marked by promises.
See, them Gentiles are smart. They know how to get some people. What they call divide and conquer. They will pit one people against another people, or the same people against each other. You can see it. It's happening amongst us. Do I have to say it? Light-skinned folks against black ones, you know? Divide and conquer. Can't stick together. Gentiles know how to do you. Go ahead.
The first stage of most of its imperial ventures was marked by promises, threats, attempts to undercut the rival government, and lip service alliances. The second stage against a softened up foe featured the mailed fist. This strategy was used against the two great Eastern powers, the successor states of Alexander the Great, Philip V's Macedonia, and Antiochus III's Seleucid Empire. Rome was careful to take on these empires one at a time. Macedonia was the first target. After fomenting rebellion among Philip's subject, Greek and Aetolian peoples, Rome defeated the Macedonians in Thessaly in 197. Thus was Greece liberated from the Macedonian yoke, or so the victors claimed. In time, the confederation of Greek city-states known as the Achaean League was goaded into revolting against its Roman protector and crushed. Epirus was devastated and 150,000 citizens enslaved. Corinth was sacked and its treasures carried off. Southern Greece became the Roman province of Achaia.
So who knocked off Greek? The Romans. And all the slaves that Greece had came down to Rome. So you went from Babylon to Persia to Greece to the Roman Empire. And they was in charge when Jesus was on the scene. Let's go to Luke 19. Because the Lord said he's going to scatter you. He ain't finished. He is not finished. Every nation, if a nation comes up, I got to make sure I get Israel over there. Because I said I was going to scatter you in every nation. You may have it good sitting pretty for about 400 years, but as you sitting pretty, another nation is coming into power, and I got to make sure I get you over there. Let's go to Luke 19. Luke 19, and pick it up at verse 41. So the Romans was in charge when Jesus was on the scene. Okay, go ahead.
And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, if thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes. For the days shall come upon thee, that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round, and keep thee in on every side, and shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation.
So let's see when this happened, because this happened in 70 AD. I couldn't put this on a handout, but I got the other one on the handout, so just hold tight. Stay awake for one little minute now. This Alice of the Bible one more time. Start right here. Because Jesus said, for the day is going to come when thy enemies shall put a trench about thee and compass thee round about and lock you in on every side. Keep reading. Go ahead. Read right here.
The overthrow and suicide of the Emperor Nero brought operations in Judea to a temporary halt as Vespasian prudently withdrew to test the imperial winds. Eventually, he himself was declared emperor. Sailing for Rome in the spring of 70, he left his capable son Titus in charge of the campaign against Jerusalem. From Caesarea, Titus marched rapidly southeastward with 2 legions and camped before the walls of Jerusalem. He was joined there by the legions that had been stationed at Emmaus and Jericho. Counting cavalry and auxiliary forces, he had perhaps 80,000 men. The walls enclosing the temple and the upper and lower cities were the most formidable barrier of all. Postponing an all-out assault, Titus turned to starvation tactics. A certain amount of food had been smuggled into the city almost nightly during the siege. But now the Romans sealed off Jerusalem completely with a wall of their own, made of earth and some 5 miles in circumference. From the outset of the siege, those attempting to get through the encircling lines had been caught and crucified. Sometimes the daily executions reached 500. The crosses were never bare.
Can you imagine that? 500 crucifixions a day. People trying to get out because they want something to eat. You go out there looking for something to eat, you end up getting killed. You become bird food. Keep reading.
Inside the city, starvation and disease claimed a mountain toe. Bodies filled the streets and were stacked in houses. Thousands of corpses were thrown from the walls into the valleys below. Titus now focused his attention on the Antonia, the great fortress Herod had built next to the temple. The rams pounded away until on July 24th, Roman troops broke through, driving their foes before them in close fighting. When the great timbered gates of the temple withstood the rams, they were set afire.
So they think that battering rams was new in the hood? They was doing that to Israel way back then, in the Roman times. Go ahead.
Soon the fighting and the fires raged everywhere within the temple complex. Before long, one of the wonders of the Roman world was nothing more than a smoldering ruin. The surviving rebels made a last-ditch stand within Herod's palace. The battering rams resumed their rhythmic work. When the legionaries at last broke into this refuge, they found only corpses. Herod's palace and the rest of the upper city were put to the torch. Jerusalem was a city of the dead.
Okay, now let's go to the handout. So Titus destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD. Now let's go to the last 2 million years. And let's see what happened to those that did survive. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, faith survives dispersion. Go ahead.
Faith survives the dispersion. The crucifixion of Jesus about AD 30 did not end Jewish resistance to the Roman occupation. In 70, when the country was again in a state of revolt, Jerusalem, the holy city, became the core of the resistance to the Romans.
So why can't, Israel, you can't be a happy slave, can you? You always want to revolt against your slave master. But that's what the book say. He's going to cause you to be jealous of another nation. So what did the book say? The crucifixion of Jesus in AD 30 did not end Jewish resistance to the Roman occupation. You can't be happy where you at. You can't be happy in captivity, but you can't. Go ahead.
Titus, the son of Emperor Vespasian, proceeded to lay siege to Jerusalem. The city fell, and the inhabitants were enslaved in their thousands and dispersed throughout the Mediterranean world. This was the first dispersion, and worse was to follow.
So they were scattered throughout the Mediterranean world, and what's all around the Mediterranean world? Africa. They were scattered west of the Mediterranean. And what is that? The continent of Africa. And from that point, they kept pushing, westward, all the way west, north, south. That's why we're everywhere in Africa. Now let's go to Deuteronomy 32. Because the Lord said he was going to do this because of our disobedience. This didn't happen by accident. Deuteronomy 32. And it said the worst was yet to come. We ain't got to the worst yet. Deuteronomy 32, and pick it up at verse 7. Okay, go ahead.
Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. He found him in a desert land and in the waste howling wilderness. He led him about, he instructed him, he kept him as the apple of his eye. As an eagle stirreth up her nest, fluttereth over her young, spreadeth abroad her wings, taketh them, beareth them on her wings. So the Lord alone did lead him, and there was no strange guide with him. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, that he might eat the increase of the fields. And he made him to suck honey out of the rock and oil out of the flinty rock. Butter of kine and milk of sheep, with fat of lambs and rams of the breed of Bashan, and goats, with the fat of kidneys of wheat. And thou didst drink the pure blood of the grape. But Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked. Thou art waxen fat, thou art grown thick, thou art covered with fatness. Then he forsook God which made him and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation.
So that's what happened. Israel got it good. The Lord was taking care of them, and they forgot who was taking care of them. And they started kicking against God. That's why people, when you got something, nobody think about God when you're happy and got a lot of money. Everything's going good, God is the last thing you're thinking about. But as soon as something bad happens, oh God, how could this happen to me? You need to think about the Lord while you still breathing, whether you got it good or bad. That's right. Bless the Lord that you wake up every morning. Keep reading.
Verse 16. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. With abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God. To gods whom they knew not. To new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Of the rock that begat thee, thou art unmindful, and hast forgotten God that formed thee. And when the Lord saw it, he abhorred them because of the provoking of his sons and of his daughters.
So much for God loving everybody. We see God can hate too. He hates those that hate him. And how do you show God you hate him? You don't keep his commandments. Your actions show him. You ain't got to say nothing. Just go to church tomorrow. You might as well tell God, I hate you. But you ain't got to say it. Your actions will. Keep reading.
And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. For they are a very froward generation, children in whom is no faith. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities. And I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation.
And that's why you can't be a happy slave. Because the Lord put it in you, because this is a curse. You will never be happy in captivity. I don't care how much money you got. You'll never be happy. Because the nation that you captive under, they're going to let you know exactly who you are. You can have $50 million. You get busted sleeping with a woman. Your wife catches you on your phone sleeping with a woman. They'll let you know who you are. You can be the best golf player in the world. When you win that Masters tournament, they're going to start serving fried chicken and greens. The Gentile will let you know who you are. He actually said that, and he forgave him. I ain't brother. Come on, man. You know what he's thinking. They're going to let you know who you are. That's why you can't be happy in captivity. Keep reading. We finished that? Verse 26. Go ahead.
I said I would scatter them into corners, I will make the remembrance of them to cease from among men.
So the Lord said he was going to scatter Israel into the corners. That's the four corners of the earth. And he is going to make the remembrance of you to cease from among men. That means you ain't going to know who you are.
That's it.
And if you don't know who you are, somebody else can say they're you, and the world will take it as okay. And you got the proof right here. This is who I am. And this guy can't prove nothing. But the Lord said he was going to do that. And the one that's calling him you is your brother. And he got everything and you ain't got nothing. But he know how to keep you in check, though. Keep reading.
Were it not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely, and lest they should say, our hand is high, and the Lord have not done all this. For they are a nation void of counsel, neither is there any understanding in them. Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end.
Okay, that's good on that. So we see the Lord said he was going to scatter you in every nation under the sun. And we read in the history books that they were scattered throughout the Mediterranean and the worst was yet to come. Well, here's the worst right here. Flip over to the last page in the handout. Because he made sure you got over here to the Americas. Because while you was being happy enslaved in Africa, America was coming to power. And when you become a nation, the Lord got to keep his promise to you. He's going to scatter you into every nation. Now just keep looking at that map while we read this right here. And it's another thing on the back, how they had you planked up, stacked up like planks. You was human cargo. Start right here, read that.
The transatlantic slave trade. Between 1500 and the 1870s, millions of Africans were captured and enslaved on the African continent and transported across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas, where they became the dominant workforce in Euro-American colonial economies.
Not only were you transferred to the Americas, you see some arrows is going up to Europe too.
Right.
Don't think that they forgot about you. Keep reading.
Slavery as a system of labor organization and exploitation had developed in antiquity. Ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome, ancient China, as well as the Inca and the Aztec cultures of the pre-colonial Americas were all slave societies. Slavery on the rest of the African continent dated back to ancient times as well and was still a part of the social structure of most African societies when the Europeans came. Native Americans were among the first slaves of European colonists in the Americas. When the Native American slave population began to succumb to European diseases and the rigorous work routine, a Spanish Dominican priest proposed to the King of Spain that Africans be substituted for the Native American slaves.
A Spanish Dominican priest, Big Papa's boys, right? Catholic Church. Go ahead.
The first shipload of enslaved Africans in the transatlantic slave trade carried to St. Domingue, Haiti in 1503 had proved themselves capable of surviving the diseases and the labor.
So you good labor. Not only you good labor, but you can survive the diseases too. You can live long with cancer. A lot longer than the natives or the Gentiles. So they can work you to death, even though you're sick. Go ahead.
In 1510, the King of Spain finally launched the transatlantic slave trade when he ordered that 50 slaves be sent to Haiti to replace Native Americans in the gold mines.
Now we read about Spain in Genesis 10, right? Gentiles, Isles of the Gentiles. They were the last ones to get involved in the slave trade. Go ahead.
It was the Portuguese, however, who dominated the first 2 centuries of the trade. Between 1500 and 1700, they established trading bases in West Africa, principally in the Congo-Angola region. Over these first 2 centuries of the trade, some 1.7 million enslaved Africans were taken to the Americas, principally to Brazil and the Caribbean. The majority of the captives continued to come from the West Central African regions of Congo, Angola, followed by enslaved Africans from the Bight of Benin, the Bight of Biafra, the Gold Coast, Senegambia, and Upper Guinea, or I guess that's Guinea. Another 3.5 million arrived in the Americas during the 19th century. The vast majority of the captives who survived were young men and boys aged 14 to 30.
Okay, that's good on that. Now you can see the map. See the real thick black arrows. You see where that's going. That's going down to Brazil. Most of the slaves went down to the South Americas. Only a small portion made it over here. But the ones that did make it over here, we top of the line slaves over here. You know, we look down on the Haitian. And the Jamaican, he comes over here thinking he better than us because he got his country. My country, my aunt's husband used to say that all the time. My father couldn't stand him, you know. My country, I can't even do the accent, but he thought he was better than my father because he was from Jamaica. They don't live good over there in Jamaica. I've been there. I got out of the hotel and I went out there to the city to see, and they live bad. The ones that got it in the hotel that's working there, that's the best job. But they living bad out there. Haiti, you know how they living. You see that earthquake devastated them because the houses are made out of paper mache. And they eating dirt cookies and everything over there. But you know, like I said, we top of the line over here. Everybody can come over here and make $1 million. You don't think black people in Cuba? Yes. Yes. And they got we got this agreement with Cuba, you know. They can come over here and seek asylum. Not if they look like us. They send them back. They made a big deal about this. What's this Ilian dude? You know, he didn't look like us. But have a boatload of us speaking Spanish coming from Cuba coming over here. Turn them around. We got enough of y'all over here. Send them back home. But anyway, read this right here. Look at what they traded you for. Go ahead.
European merchants transported goods such as textiles, iron, guns, and alcohol to Africa. Trading their wares for people, they sold the captives to planters and mine owners in the Americas for gold, silver, sugar, and tobacco, which they took back to Europe.
So you was just like they traded you for a sack of sugar or some tobacco or some liquor. That's all you was, a means of commodity, merchandise. I can get you, I got a whiskey bottle. You can probably get 2 slaves for that. A bottle of whiskey, for real. Read the next one.
Spain contracted with other European countries to ensure a steady supply of slaves to its colonies. In 1595, the first large contract, or assentio, was issued for the purchase of 38,250 slaves over 9 years, 31,500 of whom had to be delivered alive.
Read the next little bitty one.
The Dutch West India Company, formed in 1621, sought unsuccessfully to establish a monopoly on trade along the coast of the Gulf of Guinea.
Okay, that's good on that. Now let's go to let's get back to some book, Isaiah chapter 42. So once you get over here, once they let you down off your cruise, and work you to death, then you get freed somehow, but you still don't have the rights of a regular human, because even the Constitution don't even, and they haven't even changed that yet. I'm surprised they ain't even changed that. It's still in there. You less than a man. And they let you know that too. Isaiah 42, and pick it up at verse 22. Okay, go ahead.
But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are all hid in prison houses.
So that's one of the curses. Hid in prison houses. Keep reading.
They are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none saith restore.
Black life means nothing. Ain't no big investigation when somebody get killed. Go ahead.
Who among you will give ear to this? Or who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned? For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. Therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger and the strength of battle, and it hath set him on fire round about, yet he knew it not, and it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart.
Okay, I'm going to read this real quick. Well, I'm going to have him read it. You say we're going to be locked in prison houses, right? I ran out of ink, so I couldn't make no copies of this. But go ahead, read that right there.
Number of blacks in prison nears 1 million. We're incarcerating an entire generation of people.
We're incarcerating an entire generation of people. You might as well say a nation of people. And that's just here in America. But you look at this, everybody, while you YouTubing and Facebooking all day, look up the world prison population around the world.
Come on, Brian.
And see how many people that look like us that make up a small percentage of the population there, but a majority in prison. Go ahead and read.
Washington. Come the new millennium, the number of African American adults behind bars will hit the 1 million mark for the first time, according to an analyst of Justice Department statistics. That represents nearly an 8-fold increase from 3 decades ago, when there were only 133,226 blacks in prison. By 2000, roughly 1 in 10 black men will be in prison, a statistic with major social implications because prisoners don't have jobs, pay taxes, or care for their children at home. And because many states bar felons from voting, at least 1 in 7 black men will have lost the right to vote.
Now, this was a statistic that was approaching the new millennium, which is 2000. We 13 years later. I'm quite sure that numbers went up. Go ahead.
These numbers are staggering, said Lori Livingston, a former federal prosecutor and associate dean of Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. We're incarcerating an entire generation of people. Why blacks contribute about half of all prison inmates when they are only 13% of the U.S. population is subject to much speculation. Some specialists blame poverty or lack of opportunity. Others say police concentrate in poor urban areas because street crimes such as drug dealing and armed robbery are more visible and residents there demand more police protection.
All they got to do is read the Bible. You ain't got to speculate. It's right here in the book. It's the Lord that's doing it to his people. Go ahead.
The bottom line is that crime policy has become a substitute for public policy, said Jerome Miller, president of the National Center on Institutions and Alternatives in Arlington, Virginia, legal reform group that analyzed the Justice Department data. Over the past 20 years, there has been a terrible propensity on the part of politicians to deal with difficult economic, social, family, and personal problems with a meat axe. The criminal justice system, said Miller, a former commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Youth Services, over the past 5 decades, the disparity between races has widened dramatically as minorities have replaced whites in the prison population, according to the center.
Okay, that's good on that one. Let's go to Hosea 9. So we see that's one of the curses that's supposed to be on God's people. Hid in prison houses, scattered throughout the land, other nations, oppressed, mad because you can't do nothing about it. But these are God's people. This is Israel. This is Israel we're reading about. So now we can answer the question, Israel, who are they? That's us. And everybody else who's a descendant of a slave. That's who Israel is. And you want to put your finger on Israel? And every nation got a hood. I don't care where it is. They may not call it a hood over there. I don't know what they call it in France. Hoodie? Is it hoodie? I don't speak French, but it's over there too. Because that arrow went right up to Europe, didn't it? You saw them arrows? So they over there. Hosea 9, pick it up at verse 1. Go ahead.
Rejoice not, O Israel, for joy, as other people, for thou hast gone a horn from thy God. Thou hast loved a reward upon every corn floor. The floor and the winepress shall not feed them, and the new wine shall fail in her. They shall not dwell in the Lord's hand, but Ephraim shall return to Egypt, and they shall eat unclean things in Assyria. They shall not offer wine offerings to the Lord, neither shall they be pleasing unto him. Their sacrifices shall be unto them as the bread of mourners. All that eat thereof shall be polluted, for their bread, for their soul shall not come into the house of the Lord. What will you do in the solemn day and in the day of the feast of the Lord? For lo, they are gone because of destruction. Egypt shall gather them up, Memphis shall bury them. The pleasant places for their silver, nettles shall possess them. Thorns shall be in their tabernacles. The days of visitation are come. The days of recompense are come. Israel shall know it. The prophet is a fool. The spiritual man is mad for the multitude of thine iniquity and the great hatred. The watchman of Ephraim was with my God, but the prophet is a snare of a fowler in all his ways, and hatred in the house of his God. They have deeply corrupted themselves, as in the days of Gibeah. Therefore he will remember their iniquity, he will visit their sins. I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers as first right in the fig tree at her first time. But they went to Baal Peor and separated themselves unto thou Shem, and their abominations were according as they loved. As for Ephraim, their glory shall fly away like a bird from the birth, and from the womb, and from the conception. Though they bring up their children, yet will I bereave them, that there shall not be a man left. Yea, woe also to them when I depart from them.
So we see, it says what? Though I will bring up their children, yet will I bereave them, that there shall not be a man left. What's that old saying? It's a shortage of black men, we're either locked up or dead. It's the Lord's doing. This is the curse. Keep reading.
Ephraim, as I saw Tyrus, is planted in a pleasant place. But Ephraim shall bring forth his children to the murderer.
And Ephraim is none other than Israel. It's just another name for Israel, the northern kingdom. Ephraim shall bring forth his children to the murderer. We don't want us just out there dying daily, not only here but everywhere. It may be from gunshots here, but anywhere else it might be from famine. Can't eat. Keep reading.
Give them, O Lord, what wilt thou give? Give them a miscarrying womb and dry breasts. All their wickedness is in Gilgal, for there I hated them. For the wickedness of their doings I will drive them out of mine house. I will love them no more. All their princes are revolters. Ephraim is smitten, their root is dried up, they shall bear no fruit. Yea, though they bring forth, yet will I slay even the beloved fruit of their womb. My God will cast them away, because they did not hearken unto him, and they shall be wanderers among the nations.
And that's what we are, wanderers among the nations. Because the Lord said he was going to do that to his people for disobedience. But remember, he still made that promise to Abraham to bring his people back into the land where they can dwell safely. Let's go to Deuteronomy 30. Deuteronomy 30. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, folks. There's still some light at the end of the tunnel. But you got to suffer. You got to live out every sentence. Deuteronomy 30, and let's pick it up at verse 1. Deuteronomy 30 and verse 1. Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have said before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee.
So now we see it says, and it shall come to pass, when all these things have come upon the blessing and the curses. So we got to get both of them. We had the blessings, which lasted for about a minute. Now we got to get through the curses, because the Bible says all these things have to come upon us, the blessing and the curses. So we at the latter end. Now we on the curses. These are God's people. Go ahead.
And shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart.
So now wherever you at, as a nation, we scatter. This is impossible for us to do as a nation, because one of the curses is we can't get along. So now, this is an individual type thing. We know we in captivity. We know what we have to do to get right with God again is start keeping His laws, statutes, and commandments. We got a little group here, a little group there. Whatever we can do on an individual, the more individuals that's doing it, you got a little group going, okay? But as a nation, we through as a nation. So you better get yourself straight on an individual basis. Even up in here, we can't get along. So whether you got the truth or not, it's all on you. You better make sure you're right. Amen. Keep reading.
And with all thy soul, verse 3, that then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee.
So the Lord is going to come back. When you call all these curses and blessings to mind, He's going to come back and gather you. So now, I want to know where Jesus is if they went back home in 1948. All right. Where is Jesus? Where's the Lord? And why is it, if He said He's going to come back and gather them from all the nations where He scattered them, why is this dude on this infomercial running around begging for money for these Russian Jews, Polish Jews? I think they should be back in Jerusalem, right? Since they back at home. What happened? He left them behind? Maybe they got left behind now. So apparently He must have forgot them. Or maybe the Lord ain't came back and got His people.
That's right. That's the truth.
Verse 4, go ahead.
If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will He fetch thee.
So, I don't know who those people are, but the title says, Israel, who are they? And we can see that Israel is a black people that's scattered into captivity under every nation. Now let's go to the last place. Let's look at this Lord who's going to come back and gather His people. Because the one that's claiming to be you, he don't even believe in this guy right here. And this is the one that's going to gather His people. That's why you should know something. Maybe they ain't the ones. Yeah, I'm sorry, Isaiah 11. And I got one more place after that. Isaiah 11. And we're going to pick it up at verse 11. I mean, they got all the money, but yet they on TV begging. They better call up Spielberg or somebody, why you asking the poor man for $5 to get him home? Call Greenspan or somebody. He should help his own people, huh? Maybe he know that ain't his people. I'm telling you, Esau know who Esau is. Isaiah 11, pick it up at verse 11. Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set His hand again the second time to recover the remnant of His people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea.
So now He finally got over to us. Because he's going to set his hand again the second time. When was the first time? When he delivered them from Egypt. And this second deliverance is going to be on a grander scale because we coming from everywhere. And the book said we can read it every week. We're going to be coming on swift beasts. The Lord is going to get all his people. Go ahead.
And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off.
So Israel ain't going to be fighting each other no more. We're going to get along. Just like, what did you say? Can we all get along? When the Lord comes back, Israel going to be getting along then. Go ahead.
Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. But they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines toward the west. They shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them.
So now the oppression is going to be reversed. But this ain't going to be like what you think it is. This is going to be some righteous ruling. The bottom is going to be on top, and the top is going to be on the bottom. Go ahead.
And the Lord shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea, and with his mighty wind shall he shake his hand over the river, and shall smite it in the seven streams, and make men go over dry shod. And there shall be a highway for the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, like as it was to Israel in the day that he came up out of the land of Egypt.
Okay, now let's go to Matthew 24, and let's look at this Lord who's going to recover his people, and it's the last place. Matthew 24. Because if the Jews are back at home, where is Jesus? Where is David? Where are the apostles? Where is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Moses, Elijah? Where they at? Where is Adam? Matthew 24. And pick it up at verse 29. Okay, go ahead.
Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds of heaven, from one end of heaven to the other.
I hope you got some understanding in Jesus' name.